All right. What's going on, everybody? Jake Senholz back again for the second week in a row with Henry. It is week 8, which means the football season, NFL season, is approaching the halfway mark of the entire thing. We're about halfway through the regular season. It's sad. It's depressing. It always gets here way too fast, but still lots of great football ahead. And right now, I know, at least for me personally, bye weeks are wreaking havoc on my lineups. This week in my big money league, I'm without Justin Herbert, Travis Kelce. Last week, there was a handful of guys that I was without. I think I lost in 5 of my 7 leagues. So a lot of people dealing with that right now. There's also a ton of news to talk about as far as trades that have already happened. Jamar Chase is now injured and out for 4 to 6 weeks, potentially the entire season. Some people are, so there's some scuttlebutt around Twitter that they're saying right now 4 to 6 weeks is hopeful, but in reality, it might actually end his season. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Alvin Kamara, a little bit of a rumor trade there, quite possibly. Philadelphia seems to be the destination. So a lot up in the air right now as we approach the NFL trade deadline. And of course, a lot of trades already have been made, so we'll get into those as well. Hopefully, I'll be able to see the comment and see the chats here today. If not, then we'll just do the same thing as we did last week. I don't know why I had an issue last week. It was fine for the whole first 6 weeks, but
because I showed up. Definitely because I showed up.
It's definitely.
I'm breaking things already.
That's all right. We're happy to have you here. So yeah, toss your questions and comments our way, and one way or another, we will get to them. So let's just start kind of with the things I alluded to already. So last week we talked about possibly Christian McCaffrey being traded, and we mentioned a few different teams, the Bills, the Eagles. The 49ers are not a team that we mentioned, but it seemed like within hours after we got off the air, Christian McCaffrey was traded to the 49ers. We saw him a couple of times in the first, I think, 2 series, and that was it. Obviously, they're going to, try and implement him a lot more here in the coming weeks. But now that we know his destination, now that we know where he ended up, do you still feel the same way that we kind of talked about last week? Is he now going to be a 12 to 15, maybe 18-point guy on a good week, or are we still going to get some 20-plus pointers out of McCaffrey in this San Francisco Kyle Shanahan offense?
I don't know that you could have asked for a better destination, like if you're a McCaffrey owner, as far as Panthers looking to trade him to a contending team. Like, who else does San Francisco have, right? Like, McCaffrey's going to be the guy there at least until Elijah Mitchell gets back, whenever that's supposed to be. And even then, like, he's still, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be the top ball carrier, the priority in that backfield. The 49ers, I think, for me, are like the biggest disappointment here, right? Like, what are we doing? There's too much talent, though, on this team for them to continue losing games like they are. Going to San Francisco as opposed to, some other possibilities, I don't know that McCaffrey's ever really going to be ranked outside of the top 5 on a weekly basis to you. Like, I don't know that you're consistently going to have even 5 guys that you're putting above him, especially until Mitchell comes back. But even then, like, assuming he's healthy, he's going to be the guy there. And it's just another check down option for Garoppolo, assuming they use him that way. So,
yeah, we were both in agreement that if he gets moved, his fantasy value is probably going to drop to some degree. And to what degree is kind of what we were debating. But, like you said, I think this is the perfect destination for him as a player and for fantasy owners, because his overall touches are probably going to go down, but his effectiveness and his efficiency probably will go even up because of Kyle Shanahan being able to scheme different things. The threat of Deebo Samuel downfield. You got, obviously, Kittle had a really nice game last week, which you predicted, had over 15 points. So there's a lot going on in that offense, which I think is going to mean more yards, more scores, more everything for Christian McCaffrey, even if he touches the ball a significantly less amount of times.
Yeah, and I don't really know that he's going to touch it significantly less, right? Like, maybe early career McCaffrey back when he was it. But this year the Panthers offense has been so bad that there were a couple of weeks where, he was kind of underwhelming relative to like what you are used to from him in the past. So I don't know that the touches are necessarily going to drop off all that drastically. I do think as far as Deebo Samuel is concerned, there's definitely going to be a decline in his involvement in the backfield. That's my hunch. I just don't really understand why, you would continue kind of trying to pound him up the middle on carries when you can keep him in more of a wide receiver role, not risk his health that way. So I think that might be the one thing from a fantasy standpoint that suffers. If you're talking about 49ers players, is Samuel's role as a ball carrier, because you do still have Wilson there to spell McCaffrey and whatnot. So, but as far as CMC is concerned, I don't know that you could have made out much better as far as where he was going to be traded.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it comes down to is everything's good for Christian McCaffrey owners. Any worries, any anxiety, I think is pretty much put to rest with him going to San Francisco. So good on them. Good, pretty lucky. In all honesty, he could have went a couple other places that I think, the potential problems that we talked about last week would rear their heads, but I just don't see that really happening in San Francisco. So there you go. Good on you, Christian McCaffrey owners. Now moving on to a little bit more of a downer, a damper for Jamar Chase owners. 4 to 6 weeks at minimum. He's got hip problems. Now, 6 weeks takes us damn near to the end of fantasy football season. He might be back for maybe the beginning of fantasy playoffs or maybe your championship. But, are you going to start a guy with hip problems who hasn't played in 6 weeks in your fantasy championship when, the rest of your team got you to that point without him, the previous 4-6 weeks, whatever? Do you even have a shot, going in? Maybe you're a middle of the road team, you lose Jamar Chase. That could be the end of your fantasy season. There's a lot, surrounding this injury right now, real football and fantasy football wise.
Yeah, this is a big blow. I think, if you're a Chase owner and you're sitting in good position as far as like, where you're at in the standings of your league and making the playoffs, I think you just kind of have to bite the bullet. Assuming he does come back, to your point of, are you going to start a guy who's got hip problems, like when he hasn't played, like in must-win playoff games or whatever? It's Jamar Chase. I think you're going to start him at that point in the season. Like, you go with the guys that got you there, and if you're already in a good position, I'm assuming he's one of the guys who probably got you there. If you're not in a good position in the standings, though, unless you got an IR spot to burn, might be looking at trying to move him and get something back. Obviously, from a fantasy standpoint, the value of Tyler Boyd, goes up. He's already been playing well here these last couple of weeks, heavily involved, I think, in the passing game. And Joe Burrow's got a rapport with him. So I don't see necessarily a drop-off coming for him like I might have seen earlier in the week. I actually almost included him in the Sell High article I wrote for FlurrySports earlier this week, just because I was like, are we going to sustain like 17 fantasy points a week here with Tyler Boyd? Not really sure, but at this point, I'm glad I didn't, because he's not exactly a sell high anymore. And if you are selling him high, you might want to reconsider, because that sell high just got a little bit higher.
Yeah, and I think this has been Tyler Boyd's best year in probably the last 3 or 4, definitely since Joe Burrow got there. I think unless you really can get a great return package right now, he's a guy that I'm probably going to hold on to, because like you said, he's been playing well already, well being surrounded by, Hayden Hurst hasn't been awful. He hasn't been a huge impact, but you got T. Higgins, you got Joe Mixon, like a lot of offensive talent there, and Tyler Boyd was still getting it done. Now you remove Jamar Chase, who obviously touches the ball. Joe Burrow wants to go to him. So I think Tyler Boyd's going to see a big increase here. T. Higgins, honestly, his production has been what it has been, even with Jamar Chase on the field. So it probably goes up a little bit, but I don't really see him skyrocketing potentially as much as a Tyler Boyd. But I don't really think I'm looking to move any Bengals receiver right now. I think with Chase off the field, I think it's a boost for anybody you own on the Bengals. Now it's a downgrade overall for the Bengals in real life, but for those of you who own Bengals players outside of Jamar Chase, could be some positive positive movement there in the coming weeks. We are starting to get some questions here, or at least some comments. I hate the NFL says, man, Chiefs offense is really going to be deadly right now, and I hate to see it. Now, that kind of goes into a lot of the trade news that we have to talk about. Obviously, Kadarius Toney traded from the Giants to the Chiefs. The Chiefs just continue. The rich get richer. They continue to stockpile talent, stockpile weapons. But outside of Travis Kelce, nobody on that team's really been like a complete fantasy world beater. They've been spreading the ball around a lot. A couple of guys are get hot one night and then absolutely nothing the next night. MVS, Juju Smith have kind of shown that over the season. Obviously, I think it's going to be an upgrade for Toney himself going to Kansas City, but I don't know. Do you think he's going to become a breakout fantasy star there, or is it just going to be a little bit more production, or I guess a decent amount more production, but still all things relative? What's it going to do for Toney owners?
First of all, I don't know how many Toney owners there really are outside of deeper leagues at this point, right? Like,
then are you going to get him? Especially, I mean, maybe you just lost Jamar Chase. Maybe this is a guy you're sprinting to go pick up.
I'm not sprinting. I think it depends on what else is available, kind of a little bit, but I really honestly feel like it's going to take an injury or, at least a few weeks, right? Like this, Toney's kind of a guy to me who needs a few plays, just kind of gadget plays, his own type style thing. And I don't know that the Chiefs are necessarily in need of somebody to do that, right? Like if they really wanted to run, goofy plays like that with a speedy wide receiver, I mean, Sky Moore's already there. So I really kind of feel like it's going to take an injury to one of the guys, like you were saying. Juju Smith-Schuster goes down. I could see Toney stepping in. He's got speed. Obviously, you think of MVS, you think that he's the deep threat kind of guy in that offense. So maybe he spells him a couple of snaps, but I'm not starting him with confidence like right out of the gates. That's for sure. To your point, though, it's been, kind of Kelce and then everybody else here and there. Smith-Schuster's the receiver to own as far as receivers are concerned in Kansas City for me. And it's really not even close at this point. Like 8 targets in 4 of the last 5 games. And so I think he's really getting that video game rapport going here over Call of Duty with Mahomes, and so he's the guy I like there as far as receivers go going forward.
Yeah, that Call of Duty story came out where apparently the three of them were playing together and squadding up, and they won 3 games in a row. Yeah,
I'm not a video game guy though, so
right. I don't know if he's ever done this before in his career, but like Sky Moore has been returning kicks for them, and he's had a couple of mishandles, hasn't really, broken one yet to this point. Is that a role that maybe he's in for the Chiefs at all? Not that that matters fantasy-wise, but I don't know if he's ever done that before. But you get a smaller guy, quick, shifty guy. Maybe we see him returning kicks a little bit.
Maybe. So I guess if you're getting points for special teams, maybe they throw him in there. Kind of just a strange move, I guess. And to me, that's all I can really chalk it up to is depth. Like Toney's got, let me look here, 2 catches total the entire season. And he, has done nothing, hasn't played since September. So he fell out of favor there. Like the Giants have just like completely, they don't care what Dave Gettleman had. They're doing it their own way here with this new regime. So I'm not surprised that they've moved on from him. And I really think it's kind of just a stash for the Chiefs at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They did give up, nothing major, but a halfway significant amount to get him. So they must see something in him or have plans for him in the future. But yeah, he just from the start really wasn't all that impactful in New York, especially for a first round draft pick. And apparently, rumors of nobody liked him off the field, that type of stuff. So they kind of ship him out and he gets a fresh start, fresh chance in Kansas City. Now, we do have a 6:45 hard out, 6:45 Central Time because I have to go to work. So we'll start kind of moving through these questions a little bit because we're getting a lot of them here.
Sounds good.
Should Kieran Williams be an automatic start when he comes back? He was healthy for one game against Buffalo, had 0 attempts for 0 yards and 0 points. It's tough to call anybody an automatic start when they haven't played even one snap this season, right? He's a guy who is only rostered in 11.5% of leagues. So there's not a ton of anticipation, I don't think, for him to be coming back and then immediately being played right now. I think you can probably stash him if you're interested. Do you have anything here on Williams? And I definitely would not go anywhere near saying that he's a must start immediately when he gets back. If you pick him up in his first week back, he burns you by having 20 on the bench. Tweet at me and yell at me. I'll eat that, but I just don't see that happening.
If you've got room to stash Kyren Williams, I am definitely stashing him. So good for you, Spencer. I feel like I know this guy. He comes on the show every now and then and asks questions. But immediate start, I think, for me is going to come down to what does the Rams' backfield look like by the time he is actually able to take the field for a game. Is Cam Akers going to be a Los Angeles Ram at that point? We don't know. That situation's a mess. Otherwise, it's only Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown on the active roster right now. So why not give Kyren Williams a shot? Obviously, the offensive line has been poop, so they're going to have to improve as well. So you got some kind of like news things to watch here that I'm tracking along with Williams' status himself. Now, he was officially designated to return just yesterday. And so all reports have been that the Rams are thinking he might be like the lead kind of guy there when he does get back. So you got to monitor the health of Henderson, monitor the reports, what they're saying about Williams, how he looks as he ramps up here to get back from the injury. Is the offensive line getting better? And has anything changed with Cam Akers? Like, does he all of a sudden have a role in this offense? I think
does he want to be in LA anymore? Are they going to bring back Todd Gurley? A lot of stuff to consider here.
Well, Todd Gurley, or I think it was Zach on the FlurrySports podcast, actually, he and Jake were talking about, trade guys who are traded. And Zach's like, I feel like Sony Michel's already a Ram. We just don't know it yet. Like, why is he still with the Chargers? So does Michel go back to the Rams? I don't know. But, yeah, I think Kyren Williams, definitely if you have the spot on your bench or if you play in a league that has IR spots, he's a great stash. There's going to be a role there, I think, at some point later this year. Immediately, though, there's a lot of factors, I think, still to consider and monitor here these next week or two as he ramps back up.
The Todd Gurley comment was very much a joke, by the way.
Sony Michel was not a joke.
Oh,
I stole that from Bruner. So.
I know. But if you talk to Bruner, if you talk to pretty much anybody on the Lombardi Suite podcast, there's a long history with Todd Gurley. A lot of inside jokes with Todd Gurley. So I just had to throw that one out there. So Austin Eckler is going to be a problem for a lot of people this week. A lot of people relying on that production. He's like one of the top, if not the top fantasy player in the league right now. So he's on bye. So our friend JAC he says he's starting Judy right now. His other options are Eno, who I'm trying to think who that is off the top of my head, Mooney and Antonio Gibson. Okay, yeah. Out of these options, so Jerry Jeudy, obviously, I think Russell Wilson's going to be playing. made the trip. Obviously he was doing his stretches, doing his workouts on the flight. Everybody knows that by now. So I think he's going to be playing. So that's something to consider with Judy. Antonio Gibson is tough right now because Brian Robinson, I think, is continuing to establish himself as that top guy, their go-to guy in the backfield. And Darnell Mooney is a guy that I've just completely put out of my mind, 4 or 5 weeks ago at this point. He did have a one decent game semi-recently. I can't remember who it's against. But with these options laid out in front of you, who do you like at flex?
Initially, I agreed with what Jack has right now, going with Jerry Jeudy. I'm just trying to dig up some other things here. Darnell Mooney's getting targets, but less than 300 yards on the year. And the Bears are more of a high school offense, it feels like to me, than a competent NFL passing attack right now. I don't know if I would trust him. Eno Benjamin comes down to, is James Conner playing or is he not? Now, I looked up latest on Conner. He had another limited session today. He was limited at practice on Wednesday as well, as he's coming back from the rib injury. Now, Cardinals had a short week last week, so they've had longer stretch between games. Is that, would Conner have played last week if it was a full week in between? I don't know. Is he going to be limited even if he's back? I don't know. Benjamin has certainly done well in that role there. If Conner's out, Benjamin's easily the flex play for me here in this situation. Antonio Gibson, I don't want anything to do with against the Colts. And, Brian Robinson's the guy to own there, in my opinion. So,
I think too with Taylor Heineke under center, I think that they're going to be open to throwing the ball even more than they were with Carson Wentz. Maybe revert back to what we saw the first 2 or 3 weeks out of that offense when Carson Wentz actually was airing it out and throwing it all around. They have a lot of receiver talent, so definitely the backup running back or the second option in the backfield for a Taylor Heineke led Commanders team. I don't really love either, and for some reason I read as as a nickname. I forgot that's his full first name, Benjamin. But I completely agree. His first 2 weeks, he put up 27 combined points, then had a couple dull weeks. And the last 2 out of 3 weeks, he has scored a touchdown. He had almost 100 yards on the ground last week. And he's also catching the ball no less than 3 times in almost every game. And that was true even when Conner was healthy and playing. So like you said, I think James Conner is out. It's a no-brainer. Benjamin's the start.
Yeah, and of the 2 receivers, if Conner plays, and unless, you're seeing things like, oh, he's active, but Benjamin's still going to get the start and kind of be the guy here, it would be Jeudy still over Darnell Mooney. I can't do anything with the Bears passing offense. Seriously, it's bad. Jaguars are kind of middle in the pack as far as fantasy points allowed to receivers. You have to think it's going to be a low-scoring game until we see anything out of Denver, but maybe a trip to the good old United Kingdom will jumpstart the Broncos and, those plane stretches or whatever. So Jeudy had a nice game last week. So do I think he's going to, outperform Cortland Sutton rest of the season? Definitely not. But, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, so I think you're on the right track if you like Jeudy, or if there's a final decision about Conner before that London game starts, maybe kind of weigh your options there. But I think those are the 2 that you're going to be picking between. And just looking through the chat right now, we started Henry. We started a little something here between the Lombardi sweep guys. Zach says Todd Gurley is a joke. You're right. Luke says, shout out Todd Gurley. Shut up, Zach. Todd Gurley deserves a spot. Zach says he deserves nothing. And so on. So some good banter. And I knew it. It's like a boom. It's a catalyst. You mentioned Todd Gurley. Whenever you're around anybody from Flurry Sports, whenever you're on any stream and it's it's gonna derail you for quite a while because there's a lot of Todd Gurley talk between Luke, Trevor, and Zach. So yeah, just some funny stuff right there. So I'm searching through all the comments to see some actual real questions for us here. Luke did ask, where did it go here? I think he asked Julio or George Pickens.
I mean, I would be afraid that Julio Jones is going to like pull up lame on his second route of the night here. So I feel like the safe play is George Pickens. Now, Russell Gage is out for the Bucs. Like all the Bucs do is throw. Like they're the complete opposite of the Bears right now. It feels like to me they can't run the ball. So, do you think is there going to be enough there for Julio? Like coming off this injury, I think I might lean with the rookie here, just because I don't trust Jones to play a full game whatsoever right now.
I agree, and obviously Pickens has extreme amount of talent and can break off a big one at any point. And it kind of parlays perfectly into our next question here, which I believe comes from a first-time FlurrySports viewer.
Last minute of
Bateman. Yeah, right. That's
I love it.
So Bateman or Pickens? So Pickens over Julio. What about over Bateman?
This one is tougher. I am a big believer in Rashad Bateman. It's coming, but he was questionable all week. He's going to play tonight against the Bucs. Obviously, Thursday Night Football, Ravens, Buccaneers. Pickens, you got a couple days. He's going to wait against Philly. I don't know what other receiver the Ravens have that's challenging Bateman for targets other than Mark Andrews, who was questionable, in the lead up to tonight's game himself. The Bucs' run defense isn't what it's been, but adjusted DVOA wise, they're still. I don't know that Baltimore's going to be able to pound the ball through the tackles. When Bateman plays, he's got a target floor, even though the snap percentage hasn't been great. This is really close. I think the Steelers, and the argument for Pickens here for me, and then I'll, kind of, I guess, let you render a verdict if you have one. But the argument for Pickens is the Steelers they can't run the ball. They're not going to run the ball against the Eagles. The question is, is Kenny Pickett even going to be effective throwing the ball against that defense? I don't know. So you've got other targets in that offense, but it's a pass-heavy offense, which the Ravens aren't. Can the Bucs make the Ravens become that? Can anyone make the Ravens become that? I don't know. So it's tough. I'm starting Bateman in multiple leagues tonight. Don't love it, but I got to do it. If that makes you feel better about starting him with me, or if you don't, you want to let me sink on the ship alone. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So I think for me, it comes down to, like you said, it's coming for Bateman. He's going to have a breakout game, get right the ship here at some point, but he just recently missed 2 weeks and he hasn't put up double digits since week 2 versus you got a George Pickens who has been a very hot hand lately. He's only found the end zone one time in the last 4 weeks, but has scored almost or over 40 points, almost 45 points in those 4 weeks. He's getting the yards, he's getting the looks. Are you going to ride the hot hand against a good defense in Philadelphia, or are you going to kind of take that risk and feel like tonight's the night for Bateman? To me, that's what it comes down to. You taking a risk with Bateman, or are you going with the guy who's been doing it for 4 weeks in a row now with Pickens, just against a much better defense?
Well, I don't know that it is. Is it a much better defense, or
I think
I could almost see. Good. Yeah, the Bucs defense is still, I think, good.
It's the only.
I could almost see a scenario where Tampa Bay comes out with a point to prove on both sides of the ball tonight, just because it's been so chaotic, like both in the media and like clearly on the field last week was an embarrassment. So I'd probably go with Pickens as the safer bet. I think boom-wise, you could argue that Bateman might have more appeal Typically, though, starting a guy on Thursday night versus Sunday, I like to wait just because it gives me, a few days to digest what happened kind of deals. And if it went poorly, like, okay, I realize I'm probably not going to make it. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can look at this. So I think Bateman has more boom appeal to me, but Pickens would probably be the safer play if I had to go with one.
So, kind of harkening back to what we talked about last week, like, how is this week's starting roster constructed for you? How many people do you have on bye? What's your opponent's team looking like this week? Do you need that potential boom, or do you want to go with a potential floor and a little bit of a safer pick? I guess that's kind of what it comes down to me in a lot of situations at this point of the year. We're getting a ton of comments. We got a lot of viewers tonight. Of course, the night that I got a hard out because I got work in 45 minutes, we got a ton of viewers.
These, man. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll just continue going here, but we appreciate you all being here and all your questions. Hayden wants to know Brian Robinson, Darrell Henderson, or Gus Edwards at flex. So another decision that has to be made here before kickoff tonight if you're considering Edwards. Henderson, obviously, we talked a little bit about the Rams backfield already. And then Brian Robinson recorded his first couple of NFL catches last week. So he's getting slightly involved in the passing game. Is there one name that jumps out to you amongst the three here? Because it's starting as a flex, so we can only pick one.
All three are going against good defenses. The big issue I have with Gus Edwards this week is he just came back from the injury last week. 16 carries, which was more than anyone thought. Everyone was like, oh, Kenny Drake's the guy to play in this backfield this week. I don't think anyone knows who the guy to play in the Ravens backfield is on any given week at this point. And if they tell you they do, they're lying. I think Gus Edwards' workload is reduced tonight. The Ravens have been cautious. They were cautious with Dobbins, obviously dealing with some other stuff as we found out. But you have Drake there. Justice Hill could get involved. Is Mike Davis on the active roster tonight? Wouldn't surprise me. So I don't see him getting enough touches to warrant a start here. So that leaves the other two. Darrell Henderson, unless Malcolm Brown's challenging him for touches, he's the guy in LA. Matchup with the Niners isn't great. The Rams' offensive line isn't great. And so I might lean Robinson just because, like I said, got to stick with the brand. I do think he is the Washington commies back to have here. But in a way, I think you could argue that Henderson may have a higher floor just given that, I don't really know who challenges him for touches there. Question is, how many touches does he get? Because the Rams are pass heavy. So I guess that's what it boils down to. Robinson may have more touchdown upside and more upside in general. Henderson may have the higher floor. What I can tell you I would do is rule out Gus Edwards tonight, and that gives you, 3 more days to kind of toss things around, decide on one of the other two. So.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And obviously Henderson is the guy, but like you said, they're very pass heavy. He had a stretch between week 3 and week 5 that he only rushed the ball 11 times across 3 games. The exact opposite has been true with Brian Robinson, where he's been less involved in the pass game than obviously Henderson is with the Rams, but they've been feeding him the ball. I expect he'll get 20-plus touches again against Indianapolis. A lot of questions in the air for Indianapolis right now, starting Sam Ehlinger. So their defense is probably going to have to show up and play, but Brian Robinson, I mean, you got to remember this guy just played his first NFL game like a couple of weeks ago, and he's been getting better and better every week. And he's not put up amazing numbers, but 12 points last week or 2 weeks ago, 10 points last week. Especially as a flex, that's nothing to shake a stick at. So I kind of like Brian Robinson in this spot. You also got to consider the Rams are going against the 49ers. Obviously, the 49ers have owned them for the last multiple years. 49ers defense was the number 1 in the league through like 5 weeks or whatever it was. They've tapered off a little bit, but there's a couple things to consider there as well. But I completely agree with Henry. No Gus Edwards tonight. Take a few more days and make your decision. Gotta scroll through all the flurry sports banter here. Let's see. All right, found another one. Start Rashad Bateman tonight or Mooney, Godwin or Gordon. A lot of not very sexy options there.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Marquise Goodwin becomes. I can't say Marquise Goodwin becomes a sexy option to me, straight up. So I'm going to say marginally. Dave Metcalf can't go this week. Last I checked, Pete Carroll had refused to rule Metcalf out, but Pete Carroll is always Mr. Positives to injuries. So I'm going to try and see if I can't pull something else up on him here.
Well, and Goodwin's not going to find the end zone twice again this week. So
no, but I think there's enough volume around, right? Like, other than Lockett, who am I?
I would agree.
Who's gonna? He steps in to me as the guy for Metcalf. I don't really know who else I would trust to be that receiver in that offense. So, Melvin Gordon. Good golly. Mooney, I'm going to rule out because, same thing. I like Bateman better than him. I would rather play Bateman tonight. The Bears passing offense is what it is. Do I have anything on Metcalf? Didn't practice again today. You're looking at Goodwin and D. Eskridge being the two guys who would be elevated, like if Metcalf misses. And I honestly feel like he's not going to play. Like he carted off the field, right? Is he going to be back out there the next week? And it's a non-head injury. I could see if it was concussion related and clears protocol or whatever. But
well, doesn't Seattle have a?
This is tough.
Oh no, they have a week 11 bye. I thought that they had a bye coming up soon too, and usually the case is, well, you take the precautions and you sit them out an extra week, then you get the bye week. But that doesn't really matter so much. But yeah, given the fact that he hasn't practiced, and he's your all-star, you're probably not going to want to rush him back. Before last week, Goodwin only had 2 receptions. He went 2 none, didn't play, and then 2. Obviously, after DK goes out, he goes off a little bit last week, finds the end zone a couple of times. I think this is another one where definitely maybe you wait till this weekend instead of rolling the dice on Bateman tonight, and then you make your decision between Goodwin and Gordon. Again, just don't like Mooney. And another thing about Mooney that we haven't mentioned yet, the Bears finally looked good last week, and they look good. Justin Fields looked good with a bunch of designed runs and doing easier things. So I'm assuming that the coaching staff is smart enough to kind of lean into that, which is also going to harm the passing attack even further. Now, if you're looking to keep the ball on the ground even more, you're looking to design stuff for your quarterback to use his legs. That's not really a great sign for Mooney. So that's just another thing we haven't really touched on. But again, Mooney's a guy to me that if you can get literally anything for him, move him or drop him, whatever. Like, he's not somebody that I'm concerned about having on our roster as we move forward.
The other issue here, the other issue with Goodwin is the Giants are legit, and I almost say that as a question mark, but this defense plays hard, and everyone, coming into the year, nobody thought they had a defense worth anything. So are the Seahawks going to be able to maintain what they've been doing offensively to the surprise of many against the Giants? I don't know. The Broncos held them down pretty well in week 1. That's another good defense that they've already played. So I think if you're looking to be safe, you kind of come down to Bateman or Gordon here. Bateman's the Ravens wide receiver 1, but same thing. How much is Baltimore going to actually throw the ball? And Melvin Gordon is, well, I personally still kind of view that Denver backfield as a hot hand situation. Like, if he comes out and does well against Jaguars, he's going to get most of the touches. If Latavius Murray plays better, I feel like it's kind of going to be Murray's game. And so I don't know that I would necessarily be shutting the door on starting Bateman tonight, and I might actually go with him when it's all said and done. To your point that you made, like, how does the matchup look overall? Are you know, do you need points? Do you need something safe? Like, where are you at that way? Bring that into consideration for sure. But I might go with Bateman here, to be honest. I just do not trust Gordon at all. I don't trust the Broncos.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same, to the same point. If you do make the choice tonight and either Bateman goes boom or bust for you, you know what you're going to need this weekend. So there's kind of two ways of looking at a Thursday night play. But moving on to the next one, it also involves a Broncos player, Irv Smith or Greg Dulcich, PPR league. Obviously, he got a ton of looks. Dulcich did with Rippin last week. Russell Wilson has just never really he's just never really elevated the tight end position. I'm trying to think of who had great years with him as their quarterback at tight end. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. Irv Smith has had a couple real nice weeks, a couple nothing weeks, whereas Dulcich has come out and he's been a player in each of his last two games. Had a touchdown 2 weeks ago, had 6 receptions for 51 yards. And in a PPR, obviously that's huge. I just picked up Dulcich. I'm going to be playing him in a couple of leagues because tight end's been a struggle for me this year. And as I mentioned off the top, I've got Travis Kelce out. So that's who I picked up, and I'm going to roll with him. But that's just my situation. What do you see for Irv Smith and comparing these two here, Henry?
I would have to roll with Dulcich here. I'm a believer. I think that the Broncos wanted Alberto to be the guy, right? Like, he's the veteran, so we're going to give him first crack here. And then Dulcich obviously got hurt as well, but it never panned out. And now this is completely his role in the offense. And I pretty much foresee it continuing. Now, is he going to get you 6 grabs for 51 yards on a weekly basis? I don't necessarily know about that. Is he in the tight end one conversation on a weekly basis until further notice? Absolutely. And I can't put Irv Smith there. I would say this week he's probably hovering around a, tight end maybe 12 to 15. And I would put Dulcich over kind of that tier. It's too inconsistent there in Minnesota, like with his targets. Smith's a guy I thought would break out this year, but I thought the same thing about Alberto. So, and instead Dulcich is doing it. So I would ride with the rookie here.
I agree. We're in full agreement on this one. So there you go. Little more humor here. Zach and Luke were just continuing to go at it. Luke says, not working your job at 28 sounds like a dream to me. And Zach said all he had to do was give up his ability to walk. So pretty good stuff from our leader, Zach Bruner there. He also said every time you say Todd Gurley, an angel loses its knees.
That one hits close to home because, Seneca Falls, New York native. It's a Wonderful Life based on the bridge in the middle of my hometown there. Oh, yeah. So I feel that one big time.
Everyone loves It's a Wonderful Life. Great movie. All right. Full PPR, Bateman, Kirk, or Boyd. We talked a lot about Tyler Boyd at the beginning, a lot about, what's the situation going to look like in Cincinnati. Blindly, without even looking at the other numbers, he just jumps off the page to me as like he needs to show up. He needs to play well. He's going to get more targets. Cincinnati's starting to roll right now, and he's really made the most out of what his opportunities already this season. I'm going to look a little deeper into it, but I like Boyd from the get go, just given the situation. Again, we've talked extensively about Bateman here. What do you got for this one, Henry?
This one is pretty much, to me, cut and dry. Tyler Boyd. I know Christian Kirk has been the guy for Jacksonville, but going up against the Denver defense, I don't trust Trevor Lawrence to do much of anything. That Jaguars offense still has significant issues, if we're being honest here, and Denver is arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL still. So as bad as that offense is, so I would go with Boyd here. The Browns, not a good defense. He's being elevated to the wide receiver 2. We've seen what he's done to the wide receiver 3 here these last couple of weeks. So I think I would be with you on that. Bateman's the odd man out here for sure. The other thing that concerns me, I think, in Jacksonville is you had moving parts this week, right? James Robinson leaves. So is Travis Etienne going to become more involved overall? And does that include the passing game? We've seen his snap count's been ramped up. So is he taking targets away from Kirk? Zay Jones has randomly been targeted quite often every single time he's been on the field this year, which if Zay Jones is available in your league, he might be worth just kind of sticking on your bench because if Kirk goes down, he looks like the next receiver up there in Jacksonville as far as targets are concerned to me at this point. But overall, matchup-wise, and then obviously with Chase going out, he would be Boyd over Kirk here for me.
Yeah, for me, Boyd's got to be in your lineup right now. He's been playing way too well to not be, even with Chase on the field. The last 2 weeks, he has 14 receptions for like 100 and let's see, quick math here, or excuse me, 213 yards it looks like, and a touchdown for 42 fantasy points. Now, Jamar Chase obviously not gonna be there to take away any looks. So for me, especially like you said, against Cleveland, and then the next week is against Carolina, Tyler Boyd's got to be in your lineup here the next couple of weeks. A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, or bench Evans for Dameon Pierce, half PPR. I mean, Dameon Pierce should be starting regardless, right?
I think so. Just his role there is pretty matchup proof, it seems like to me. The Titans defense is scary as far as running backs are concerned. They've allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points per game, less than 20 to the position, and adjusted DVOA wise, Tennessee has been pretty darn good against the run as well, as far as I know. Is my computer lags here? Yeah, 3rd in run defense DVOA. So it's a tough matchup for sure.
But I mean, he's the guy for Houston, right? Like if they have any chance against the Texans, if they have any chance really in any game, he's got to go. He's got to get going. And like he scored 3 weeks in a row. Just had a bye week, so he's going to be obviously plenty rested, plenty healthy. He scored no less than 15 points going all the way back to week 3. Yeah, it's against Tennessee. Yeah, it's a divisional matchup. Yeah, it might be ugly. A lot of Texans games this year have been ugly, and Pierce just keeps on chugging. So for me, like that's not even a question for me. So I'm putting him in the lineup. It comes down to the other 3 for me. And again, T. Higgins probably going to get a boost, probably going to be elevated by the fact that Jamar Chase not on the field. A.J. Brown, though, he's got to get a lot of consideration as well.
Yeah, I think if I had to do this, I would be starting A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, and Dameon Pierce and benching Mike Evans. And, you can't really go wrong here regardless, I feel like. Like, this is a good little pickle, I think, to find yourself in. But obviously you want to do what's going to get you the most points, right? I think the argument I would make against Mike Evans, the Ravens tend to be a blitz-heavy team, right? So we know the Buccaneers' offensive line is terrible. Does Tom Brady having to get rid of the football quickly, and he's he's got skittish feet back there too, just because he's been hit so many times. If he's got to get rid of the football quick, wouldn't that benefit or give more targets to Leonard Fournette out of the backfield, Cade Otton at tight end, who I really like tonight, Chris Godwin, your intermediate or shorter route receivers than Mike Evans, and be quite frankly, like, do we trust the Bucs offense right now? I don't know that we can say that with much confidence at all going into this matchup. Dameon Pierce is the focal point of that Houston offense, and I know it's a difficult matchup, but the other factor is half PPR too, which kind of would even further make me lean with the running back.
Mike Evans will probably want to make up for that giant, massive drop he had last week that kind of changed the course of the game as well. So that's, something to consider how much stake you put in something like that. But like you said, these are all pretty darn good options, and I don't think you'll really be kicking yourself too hard no matter who you go with. They all should have decent weeks. We got a lot to get to yet. One flex, one wide receiver. Godwin, Olave, Etienne, or Walker. Travis Etienne is in another question here coming up later. Look, they just traded out James Robinson, and James Robinson was a top 5 back for the first couple of weeks. Once Etienne started showing flashes, showing what he could do, they went to him pretty much full time. I think he's obviously the guy down there right now. So I like Etienne. And Chris Olave is a guy that I have a hard time benching now as well. Andy Dalton has been moving the ball around the field. Olave has burned me a couple times when I did bench him. I like him. I like Chris Olave this week and pretty much any week moving forward. I just think he's getting better and better. And especially if there's any truth to the Kamara trade rumors, like they're going to be airing the ball out even more. Henry, your 2 picks here.
I'm assuming this is Kenneth Walker we're talking about, right? He would have to be a play for me. The Giants are 30th in run defense DVOA. Walker's the guy in that backfield with Rashad Penny inevitably getting hurt. So I got to go with him. The Giants have also allowed the 3rd most PPR fantasy points per game. 2 running backs. I know ETN is taking over there in Jacksonville, but it's a far more difficult matchup against the Broncos defense, and that's, even recognizing that Denver's strength has been defending the pass this year. So I would go with Kenneth Walker of the 2 running backs as the flex. And for receivers, I would go with Chris Olave. I agree with you there. Much more favorable matchup against the Raiders. More mouths to feed in Tampa Bay. And do we trust the Bucs right now? Again, no. So Olave and Walker I would have to go with.
All right. So at least you got Olave, and then you'll have to pick between the other 2, whoever you feel more drawn to. This is an interesting one.
Snoop Connor at the goal line for the Jags. If they ever get down there against the Broncos, I'm just saying, former Ole Miss Rebel Snoop Connor, he might vulture
maybe
a touchdown from ETN.
Take him as an anytime touchdown scorer. Try and make a little extra cash on the side this weekend. This is an interesting one. Lamar or Tua? Tua gets to play Detroit, which automatically makes me say Tua. Lamar, I mean, this could easily be, Thursday night on a short week. We know how weird these games get. I mean, this could easily be like a 19-15 game, or like just something low scoring where Lamar does enough to win or enough to keep him in, but doesn't really, show out like all that much. Whereas Tua, I think, is ready to come back and just toss the ball around the yard and, maybe get into a shootout with the Lions. I think there's a lot more upside with Tua this week.
Yeah, upside-wise, I think I like Tua more. I do like Lamar Jackson as a runner tonight. I talked about that in the underdog DFS picks for TNF I put up a little earlier today. Like, the Buccaneers just don't have speed. And I'm still not convinced that Baltimore's backs are they going to make a bunch of headway running between the tackles tonight? I don't know. So I think Lamar Jackson's going to be involved. And I liked him over 61.5, I think it was, rushing yards. You can't really go wrong either way. Upside-wise, though, it's hard to not like Tua, like the Lions defense. as much as I love me some Dan Campbell, not good.
Tua is also primed to throw multiple touchdown passes. Since his 6 touchdown pass week 2 performance, he's only thrown 2 total since then. I think the Lions are a perfect opportunity for him to find Hill, find Waddle, and put up some big time points this weekend. Tonight, Gus Edwards or flex Christian Kirk or Jerry Jeudy?
Not Edwards tonight. That's going to be Christian Kirk for me.
And we did talk quite a bit about all 3 of these players previously in the stream. If you joined us late, want to go back and rewatch. We talked a lot about Jeudy and Kirk, but yeah, again tonight probably avoid Edwards, and then make your decision between Kirk and Jeudy this weekend. Should I start Brady and Godwin tonight? Well, I don't know what your other options are. But I that's tough because I don't know what your other options are.
I don't think either one of them is going to be terrible. Like, I'll say that. I mean, the Bucs are definitely going to be better than they were last week. Like, I could see Tom Brady pushing to be a top 10 quarterback again. I think, revenge and prove everybody wrong is kind of going to be a motivator. So I think the Bucs will bounce back tonight for sure. Like, they're not going to be held to 3 points or whatever it was again. Got much yards there, it's a wonder, but he's getting peppered with targets. So as long as it's PPR league, you'll be fine. I don't know what your other options are, but when it comes down to it, like, you're typically starting those 2 on a weekly basis, anyways.
All right, another one involving tonight: ETN against that Denver defense, or playoff Lenny tonight against Baltimore. I don't have Leonard Fournette in any of my leagues, so let me look up. I'm not really up on what his numbers have been recently, but again, I like ETN. I think even against a stout Denver defense, they're really going to be leaning on him, and they like him a lot down there. What's the argument for Lenny here? Or is there one?
The argument for Fournette is, he's the guy in that Bucs backfield, right? I don't foresee Rachaad White really taking over. These 2 are both easily like top 20 running backs, if not top 15, I would say this week. I'd probably go with Fournette just because, again, that Denver defense scares me still. But
his numbers have been impressive despite not finding the end zone. He's only got 1 rushing touchdown on the season, but he's been doing it with receptions. Had double-digit receptions a couple weeks ago. Obviously, completely flat against Carolina, but the whole team was. I guess now that I'm looking at it, I actually like Leonard Fournette probably better than any Bucs player tonight. Now that I'm looking a little bit deeper into it.
And same thing, like, they can't run the ball, but Fournette is involved as a pass catcher, and because Brady is scared for his life back there, like, he's checking it down and trying to get it out quick, and that just feeds a player like Fournette targets. So he's the safer play, I would say, for me. Like, ETN's still a rookie. There are, JaMychal Hasty's there. Like I said, Snoop Connor, does he get involved somehow? Vulture a touchdown. So, yeah. All right.
So we actually had the same exact question, Lenny or ETN at flex, full PPR. I think we just answered it, probably Lenny. Another question, 2 players that we talked about a lot already, full PPR, Pickens or Bateman. We talked a lot about these players, but not up against each other. Henry, thoughts?
I think we did, actually. And it was kind of like, the Steelers are going to have more. The Steelers have to throw the ball, right? Because they can't run. The Ravens want to run the ball. So how many targets, how many passing plays are there actually going to be for Bateman to produce? Pickens might honestly be the safer play here, even though I still remain a big believer in Bateman. And I don't know how you can not think that a big performance is coming sooner than later here.
Another one here, running backs, also involving tonight's game, Gus Edwards or Khalil Herbert.
I might go Khalil Herbert on this
I
one.
was thinking the same.
He's the better back in Chicago. And the only reason Montgomery's playing ahead of him is because he's the big name there. Honestly, I feel like seriously, go look at their yards per carry. Like Herbert he's more explosive. He's better. The Bears, they're running the ball, ground and pound. Uh, I don't like Edwards tonight. I've already gone on the record as saying that. I'd probably lean Herbert.
David Montgomery's really been an enigma. I think there was a point in time where I think Tariq Cohen was better than he was fantasy-wise, and now Khalil Herbert's better than he was fantasy-wise. So, just strange stuff. But the Bears refuse to go away from him, and probably because they spent such a high draft pick, and like he is the name, like you alluded to. Let's see. I also like Herbert, and again, you can't count on, Gus Edwards comes in his first game last week, gets in the end zone twice. Probably can't count on that happening again tonight against the Bucks. Jimmy Graham excuse me. I was reading Luke. Luke has been just going back and forth with our commenters trying to help us out. So I do appreciate that. Do I start Dak or Brady? There's an interesting one. We haven't talked about Dak yet.
Yeah, the Bears defense has been pretty solid. We're trying to keep things moving. So I'm not going to dive into a ton of numbers. Kind of a rough matchup, though, for opposing quarterbacks against Chicago this season. I think you could definitely make a case for Brady going up against the Ravens. Bucks can't run the ball anyway, and Baltimore has allowed looks like 8th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So I would probably lean Brady.
All right, there you have it. Who start for flex? We got Godwin, Lockett, or Foreman.
Godwin, Lockett, or Foreman. Oh man, not Deontay Foreman.
I was just gonna say I think the Panthers are gonna lay maybe the biggest egg of all time this week, coming off such an incredible high energy victory, keeping Tom Brady to 3 points. Now they got to play another division opponent against an Atlanta team that's really not that bad and only favored by 4 points. Again, before last week, Foreman did absolutely nothing. There was 5 weeks in a row where he got less than 1 point, and then week 6 he got 1.9 points. So just because he had one good game against Tampa Bay, I'm definitely not a big believer. So we probably can get rid of him. So it comes down to Godwin and Lockett.
Well, Foreman's going to continue to lead that backfield, like with McCaffrey gone, and he's better than Chuba Hubbard. Like that's not even close to me. But compared to these two receivers you're looking at, I wouldn't be starting him. I'd probably go with Lockett here. And, that kind of comes back to DK Metcalf's either not going to play or if he's out there, I could almost see him being more of a decoy than actually good. I know it's a tough deal there going against the Giants secondary, which has been solid. But Gino's been up to the task all season. And so I would roll with probably Lockett there over Godwin.
All right, so we're eliminating one. Pollard, Mixon, Cook, or Fournette. He needs 3 of them. Who's getting the boot?
Holy cow! This is a nice situation to be in. So is it probably like he's be trending towards he's not going to play, but regardless, like I don't know how you can start Pollard over a big 3 like Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and Leonard Fournette. So Pollard's got to be the odd man out, whether Elliott plays or not.
I was leaning Pollard as well, and he's really the only guy that's that shares time as well. So even if Zeke ends up not playing, could come back to bite you. But if Zeke does play, you're looking at one guy who shares time versus 3 lead backs. So I agree. Half PPR, Waddle, Olave, Hopkins, Godwin, start 2. Again, I think Tua is going to just throw it everywhere, all over Detroit. So I like Waddle. I have an affinity for Chris Olave, as we already talked about. With Godwin, again, like Henry said, too many mouths to feed, short week. Is Brady going to be looking to Mike Evans to try and make up for some of the stuff that we saw last week? I'm probably staying away from him. So for me, it comes down to Hopkins, Olave, and Waddle. Look, I think Arizona's going to win this weekend. I think they're going to beat the Vikings straight up. Hopkins obviously gave them a huge boost coming back. I'm starting Jalen Waddle for sure. I don't know if you're with me or not on that one, but between Olave and Hopkins, who would you lean on?
Yeah, it's Waddle and Hopkins for me here as well. Like the Vikings secondary is nothing to write home about. Olave, you could argue that, yeah, he's the guy there in New Orleans, but is Michael Thomas coming back? Who knows? The Saints, for whatever reason, are deciding to roll with Andy Dalton over Jameis Winston, even though Winston's now healthy. So that, don't love that, regardless of who we're talking about here. So I would roll with Jalen Waddle and DeAndre Hopkins, who arguably have the two best matchups as well.
Oh, we got another exact same QB situation, Dak or Brady. I believe we landed on Brady, correct?
Yeah, that's where I would go, I think, if I had to pick a side.
All right. Need a running back. Need a running back in standard. Gus Edwards tonight or James Conner. Again, Conner is questionable, I believe, to play.
Seems like he's trending towards playing, though. Like the fact that he's been limited in practice, they've had an extended week off. I don't know how you can argue for Edwards over him, just given like the situation that the Ravens backfield is. So maybe like try to have some sort of an insurance policy there if you can. I don't know if Benjamin's available or somebody else on waivers, but I almost feel you'll be able to find a better option on waivers, assuming it's not like a 16-team league we're talking about here, than Gus Edwards tonight.
Yeah. The other thing with Conner too is like, yeah, if he's coming back, and Benjamin's been playing so well behind him, like, do they split time? Do they lean on Benjamin just a little bit more this week because Conner came back? It's just coming back, or what do you got?
Yeah, so Jacob followed up like later in the chat, a couple comments up. He was like, he has Tyler Algier and Brian Robinson in case James Conner is out. Leave Gus Edwards alone tonight. Like, I would rather sit and wait. And if Conner's out, I'm going with the lead Falcons back and the lead Washington back over Gus Edwards, who I don't know if he's going to be the lead back tonight for sure.
And if you got Robinson for me, like, yeah, I probably would tell you to start Robinson anyway. Just so yeah, that's a pretty good option, pretty good backups there. Should I play Mark Andrews?
Yes.
Yes. Like, he was, you probably drafted him extremely high. You got to play him. Let's see. Couple more left here. Pollard, Mixon, Cook, or Fournette need 3. Wait, is this our same question we already answered? Yes,
I believe it is.
It's the same. So it's same exact situation. Probably toss Pollard to the side. You can't play him over those kind of names. Would you start Singletary or Harris this week in a full PPR?
Full PPR, it's got to be Singletary for me. Like, do I think Damian Harris is going to be more involved than he was last week in his first game back from injury? Absolutely. I think a more positive game script is going to help New England, but this Jets defense has been pretty decent. So I would go with Singletary, and he's got more of a pass catching upside there as well. I don't think that's really something you would want to dispute.
I agree. Uncle Broccoli says, Mark Andrews, yay or nay? We answered it. Hopefully you heard it. You got to start him. DJ Moore or Chris Godwin. Again, I think Carolina is going to be a bunch of doo-doo this week. So
DJ Moore or Chris Godwin? I would probably roll with Chris Godwin here. Like I don't know that you can trust anything the Panthers have going on. Kind of your sentiment there. I know DJ Moore is pretty much the only weapon left, but PJ Walker, like, do I trust him at quarterback? No. So
Well,
DJ Moore is probably hardly a wide receiver 2 in a 12 team.
I can see, Carolina kept Tampa Bay to just a field goal last week. I could see them being kept out of the end zone by the Falcons this week. I mean, obviously, Falcons defense isn't incredible, but back-to-back division games after such a big win, when your team has just been stripped down to the bone, essentially. I don't really like anything going on in Carolina. Dalton Schultz or Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst has been really good in primetime games. I think on their Thursday night game a couple of weeks ago, he had like 3 catches in the first drive or something like that. I would lean Hayden Hurst, but I got to look at some Dalton Schultz numbers here real quick. I know you like Dalton Schultz a lot from past years, don't you? Or you used to, at least?
I like it, but he's banged up. He's questionable to play as of right now. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to be out there, but the Bears have also allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to tight ends. The Browns have been decent against the position, and there's a lot of other ways to beat the Browns, but kind of goes back to what we've already talked about a lot on the show. Jamar Chase is out. Everybody in the Bengals, like passing offense kind of just takes another step up, and I would say that kind of includes Hayden Hurst, as crazy as that might sound. So I would roll with him there, much more favorable matchup. Prescott Cowboys didn't exactly look great last week against the Lions defense that it's not hard to look great against. So might be some rust there still shaking off for Prescott himself as well.
Again, our friend Uncle Broccoli really wanted that answer. We have
how have we been doing this whole stream?
Yeah, we get to them as soon as possible. I hope you keep coming back and keep answering questions, but there was a bunch that was submitted before you, and we did answer yours. So hopefully you forgive us.
People have the attention spans of nothing these days.
Cooks, DJ Moore, Jacoby Myers, Deontay Johnson, Alec Pierce, or Mostert in a full PPR. Pick your top 4. Oh, boy. Deontay Johnson's been a disappointment. He's been real tough. I've been forced to start him in a couple of different leagues. Cooks, other than Pierce, is pretty much the one good thing that they got going in Houston, but there's potential trade rumors for him as well. DJ Moore, we already said we don't really like this week, and Jacoby Myers and Alec Pierce, the other 2 to consider here.
All right, I'm ruling out Alec Pierce right away, and that's because who the hell knows what Sam Ehlinger is at quarterback. I guess I can get behind the idea that, okay, he's more mobile than Matt Ryan, so is that going to open things up for the Colts? But what does that mean for other receivers? Paris Campbell's been stepping up in recent weeks. Finally, about time. You got Pittman there. You got Naheem Hines back healthy. You can catch passes. Alec Pierce is out for me. Brandon Cooks, I feel like, based on the other names on this list, has to be in, especially knowing the Titans, their primary strength defensively is against the run. So I think Davis Mills is going to be stuck throwing by default. Cooks is going to get targeted. I like Jacoby Myers on a weekly basis. I think solid PPR floor there for sure. And that's what this is full PPR. Going up against the Jets doesn't necessarily scare me a ton. Like, Jets defense is good, but that offense is bad. And Bill Belichick against the Jets, that usually tends to play out a certain way, especially after last week. So I think with Mac Jones coming back, that could help him too. So I like Cooks. I like Myers. I'm ruling out Pierce. I think you can probably I would rule out DJ Moore here if I had to rule out somebody else too. I think is where I would lean. Deontay Johnson, like, same thing. Steelers need to throw, so there's targets to go around. I know it's not Deontay Johnson of years past, and I know it's a tough matchup, but I think there's still a decent floor where you're going to get something. DJ Moore, are you going to get much of anything with PJ Walker at quarterback? and the Panthers clearly in tank mode. I don't know. So I think I would rule out DJ Moore, Alec Pierce. You're free to disagree with me if you want, but yeah.
I don't disagree.
I think Mostert will be fine too. Like he's kind of taken over that backfield there over Chase Edmonds, been far more impressive. So.
Couple rapid fire here as we approach game time, and I really have to get going for work. Emergency start 3: Waddle, Godwin, Olave, and Higgins. We talked about all of these guys already. I think we're in agreement with Waddle and Olave. I probably would start Higgins again, just given the situation without Jamar Chase. And again, we've kind of beat the drum over and over about the struggles in Tampa Bay right now, all the mouths to feed. If we like Lenny tonight, but don't really love any of the receivers. So that's kind of what I got there.
You're deciding between Godwin and Olave basically. And if Michael Thomas somehow plays, I guess that eats into Olave. I don't love Andy Dalton there over Jameis Winston, but there are definitely more mouths to feed in Tampa. So I'd probably go with Olave and then Higgins and Waddle for sure.
All right. Couple more last ones. Singletary or Najee Harris full PPR. Probably Singletary. I mean, Najee Harris has been, given what I thought he was going to be this year, an extreme disappointment. Singletary for me. Henry, what do you think here?
Can you remind me who the Bills play? I'm blanking.
The Bills play the Packers.
Funny I ask you that. I would go with Najee Harris here because that Bills backfield is a crap show. And they can run the ball. You would think it'll against Green Bay, but something tells me the Pack's gonna show up this week. And may or may not really like them to cover as a 10.5-point dog or whatever it is. But,
I think on principle, I have to take them plus 11.5.
Bills are off a bye, maybe a little sleepy. And as long as Josh Allen's on the field, no Buffalo running back is going to be the top ball carrier anyway. So
that's true.
I think you would go with Harris there, and hope that he gets targeted a little bit more in the passing game. And you drafted him to be a start on a weekly basis. You drafted Singletary probably as depth, flex at most. I think this is a scenario where I want to roll with the guy I drafted to start.
That's fair enough. All right, last questions here. Wamo Diaz wants to know Lamar or Burrow, and Edwards or Foreman. I don't love either of those two running back options. Lamar and Burrow. Boy, that's also tough. I probably would start Joe Burrow. I think he's getting hot. I think the Bengals are starting to feel it. And primetime against the Browns. Obviously, Lamar's in primetime again tonight, but Monday night I feel is a little bit different than Thursday night. I like Joe Burrow.
Yeah, the Browns' defense is than the Bucs, so I could agree with you there. As for the running backs, it's Deontay Foreman for me. Like I said, he's the best back Carolina has. He's better than Chuba Hubbard. Sorry to all the Pokes fans out there who still think that's going to work out in the NFL. But and then, like I said, I've been fading Gus Edwards the whole stream, and I'm going to continue to do that. I just don't think the Ravens are going to give him that much of a workload tonight. Short week off injury. Yeah.
All right. And very last one, appreciate all the interaction tonight. It's been a really long stream filled with a ton of questions. So we really do appreciate that. I wish I could stay on longer and keep them coming. But last one here for you, Henry, real fast. Edwards, Singletary, or Mostert?
Sticking with the brand. I'd go with Mostert. I don't know how, again, same thing, right? You think the Bills can run the ball against the Packers. I feel like that game's just going to be weird. It's prime time. I know the Bills are home, but I feel like Green Bay steps up. Detroit's defense, how can you not start somebody going against Detroit's defense right now? So that'd be Mostert for me. And I honestly am a little bit more confident in Mostert to get a solid floor of touches as a receiver and a runner combined, for that matter, than I am Singletary, regardless of the matchup. So, if that makes sense.
It certainly does. We got one
no
more
one.
here. DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson. Again, I've
Johnson.
talked so much crap on DJ
Johnson.
Moore, and Deontay Johnson at least has, I don't know, somewhat of an opportunity to make some plays, and a quarterback who's going to continue to grow and continue to keep getting better. Whereas I think PJ Walker, we know what he is, and it's not horrible, but it's also not, a guy that's going to make anybody incredible. Rolling the dice on Deontay Johnson.
I respect PJ Walker, but I don't foresee much success for DJ Moore owners going forward, regardless of who's a quarterback. Honestly, I don't blame the Panthers at all for starting Walker over those other two guys who we won't name for now. But yeah, I'd go with Johnson here. Thank you for appreciating this, Dan Campbell too, Bob Jimmy. You're a real
lots of Henry shirt comments that we got tonight. So again, thank you all for joining the stream. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Henry, thank you very much. I have to run. Enjoy the game, everybody, and good luck this weekend.